Emma Winters adjusted the straps of her worn backpack as she pushed open the doors of Lincoln High School. The hallways buzzed with the usual chaos, laughter, shouting, and the rattle of lockers. But for Emma, every day felt like stepping onto a stage where the audience wasn't cheering but judging. Her camo jacket, meticulously chosen that morning, immediately drew whispers. "Look, it's Army Girl," someone murmured from the corner of the hallway. A snicker followed. A group of seniors nudged each other, glancing at her with that familiar mix of amusement and derision. Emma's stomach tightened, but she refused to let her shoulders slump. Her fingers grazed the sketchbook tucked into her backpack. Inside were pages filled with helicopters, fighter jets, and intricate diagrams of rotor blades, her sanctuary in a world that didn't understand her fascination. Her father had taught her everything about flight and military aviation, from the physics of lift to the history of legendary pilots. But most of her classmates saw only a weird girl who liked camo and helicopters. It wasn't just clothing, it was identity. And identity in high school was a dangerous thing to flaunt. Emma moved through the hallway like a ghost, eyes forward, ignoring the laughter that followed. She passed the lockers with precision, stepping over a rogue backpack that someone had carelessly dropped. A boy shouted, "Hey, Army Girl, reporting for lunch duty." A chorus of snickers erupted. Emma's fingers clenched instinctively on the straps of her bag. She breathed slowly, recalling the calm, steady voice of her father. "Let them mock, Emma. Pride and courage are not borrowed from others. They come from inside." By the time she reached the cafeteria, the taunts had intensified. Tables divided along invisible lines of popularity, and she had learned to navigate them carefully. Her usual spot, tucked into a corner near the windows, was waiting. She slid into the seat, opening her sketchbook with deliberate care. The pencil moved across the page, tracing the rotor blades of a black hawk in mid-flight. The sound of laughter seemed distant as she entered her zone, a private world of precision and motion. Her best friend, Lily, slid into the seat across from her, lowering her voice. "Ignore them," she whispered, scanning the cafeteria. "They'll get bored eventually." Lily's optimism was infectious, but Emma knew it wasn't just boredom, it was cruelty. People loved to mock what they didn't understand, and high school thrived on spectacle. Yet even in the cafeteria, whispers continued. A girl in the next table leaned over, smirking. "You know camo is for the army, not a lunchroom." Emma looked up, meeting the girl's gaze evenly. "I like it," she said simply. "No more, no less." Silence hovered for a moment. The girl blinked, perhaps expecting tears or anger. There were neither. Emma returned to her sketches, filling the page with tiny rivets along the fuselage of a helicopter, capturing every mechanical detail. She could feel the stares, but she refused to look up. After lunch, classes dragged on in the usual monotony. History, math, biology, subjects that normally demanded attention now competed with the constant pressure of being observed. Emma focused on her notes, but she could feel the subtle energy of ridicule pressing down. At the same time, her fascination with military strategy and aviation remained an inner fire. She imagined herself flying through the clouds, maneuvering a Black Hawk across rugged terrain, far from the shallow judgments of high school peers. Later, during the school's morning announcements, a notice flashed on the screen. "Spirit Week is next week, featuring the big football game on Friday." The room buzzed with excitement. Emma felt a flutter of anxiety. Spirit Week was a nightmare for someone like her. The pressure to conform, to dress like everyone else, would be unbearable. The last time she'd participated, she had worn her usual camo and faced relentless teasing, even from teachers who didn't understand how to intervene. Yet something inside her sparked. Her father's voice echoed in her mind again, clear and unwavering. "You don't wear camouflage for them, Emma. You wear it because it's who you are. Pride is your shield." The words strengthened her resolve. Emma could either shrink under the scrutiny or embrace it. For the first time, she felt a flicker of excitement amidst the usual fear. Perhaps Spirit Week wouldn't break her. Perhaps, for once, she could stand tall. The final bell rang, releasing a flood of students into the hallways. Emma moved steadily, clutching her sketchbook. As she walked past her peers, she noticed the familiar mocking expressions, but she also caught something new, a fleeting look of curiosity in a few eyes. Some of the underclassmen, often silent witnesses to the ridicule, seemed to watch with genuine interest. She wondered if they saw more than the camo jacket. Did they see the determination behind it, the quiet pride she carried like armor? By the time she reached the schoolyard, Emma's mind was already working on a plan. She would wear camo for Spirit Week, not to prove anyone wrong, but to prove something to herself. She would walk onto the field at the football game with her head high, fully aware of the risks. She would endure the mockery, yes, but she would not shrink. And if she could survive a week of whispers, stares, and taunts, perhaps she could finally show a glimpse of the person she truly was. As the sun dipped behind the gymnasium, casting long shadows across the courtyard, Emma paused. The school felt like a battleground, each step a small skirmish. But unlike other days, this evening carried a quiet promise. She would not be invisible. She would not be silenced. Somewhere beyond the laughter and teasing was a path only she could take, and it began with standing tall in her camouflage jacket, proud of every stitch, every symbol, every mark of identity that made her Emma Winters, the girl who refused to be ordinary. And in that moment, Emma realized something profound. It wasn't about the people who mocked her. It was about who she would become because she didn't let them define her. A small smile tugged at the corner of her mouth, and for the first time in a long while she felt the thrill of quiet victory. Tomorrow would be another battle, but one she was ready to fight, armed with courage, determination, and a heart that refused to hide. The following Monday, Emma returned to Lincoln High with a renewed sense of purpose. Spirit Week had officially begun, and the hallways were decorated in garish banners, balloons, and posters. Students bustled, coordinating outfits and plans for theme days. Emma observed it all silently, camo jacket still pressed and clean, her backpack snug against her shoulders. Her classmates laughed and joked, planning stunts and pranks, while she mapped her own strategy, to participate in the week fully and proudly in the way only she could. Which was the first test. Emma navigated the cafeteria, dodging snickers and sideways glances. Her peers were relentless, yet she focused on Lily, who sat waiting with a sympathetic smile. "You've got this," Lily whispered, nudging her notebook toward her. Emma opened it, tracing the familiar sketches of helicopters mid-flight. Her father had taught her the history, the mechanics, and the discipline of aviation. She thought of him now, his steady voice echoing. Courage is about standing when others would sit. Pride is about knowing who you are. Her resolve strengthened. If she was going to endure Spirit Week, she would do it on her own terms. She meticulously planned her outfit for Friday's big football game. Camo pants, jacket, boots polished to perfection. She added pins and patches that represented aviation milestones, a subtle nod to her passion. Each detail mattered. Emma wanted to show the world, not to humiliate but to assert herself. She was proud, she was capable, and she would not shrink under mockery. Throughout the week, classmates continued their relentless teasing. "Army Girl alert," a boy shouted on Tuesday morning. A group of seniors gathered, whispering and pointing while cameras flashed from every angle. Emma ignored it, moving with quiet confidence. Lily stayed close, offering words of encouragement and discreet reassurance. Emma began noticing subtle shifts. Some students watched her with curiosity instead of ridicule. Her calm, steady demeanor seemed to challenge their assumptions. For the first time, she felt a flicker of control in a world that had always sought to make her small. By Wednesday, the anticipation of the football game began to dominate conversation. Students discussed pep rallies, team strategies, and halftime shows. Emma, however, focused on herself. She walked the hallways, sketchbook in hand, carefully observing the crowd. She noticed subtle microexpressions, mockery, awe, curiosity, that told her presence was starting to make an impression. She began quietly enjoying the role of the outsider who refused to be intimidated. Each snicker became less intimidating, each sideways glance less threatening. Emma had discovered a strange form of empowerment: endurance. After school, she returned home and spread her sketches across her desk. She refined her ideas for the week's final day, imagining how she would walk onto the football field, confident and unshaken. Her father, retired from the army, leaned against the doorway, watching her work. "You're ready for this," he said, voice calm and steady. Remember, people will try to define you by their fear. Don't let them. Own yourself, Emma. Pride isn't loud. It's quiet, steady, and unshakable. Emma nodded, absorbing every word. She had learned resilience through years of observation, reading, and shadowing her father during helicopter simulations. Today, the lessons felt alive within her, sharpening her resolve. She packed her sketches, pinned her favorite helicopter diagrams to her wall, and spent the evening rehearsing the walk she would take onto the field. She envisioned the faces of her peers, mocking, curious, and eventually impressed. Thursday brought more challenges. During gym class, students tried to bait her with snide remarks. "Do you march in formation too?" one jeered. Emma responded with quiet composure, offering no fuel for ridicule. Lily whispered behind her, "You're amazing," and Emma felt a warmth that strengthened her courage. Even the teachers seemed impressed by her poise under pressure. She realized that endurance was more than physical, it was mental. She had learned to survive ridicule with dignity, transforming it into confidence. The night before the big game, Emma lay awake, visualizing every detail of tomorrow. She imagined the football field, the cheering crowd, the scent of fresh-cut grass mixed with adrenaline. She pictured herself stepping forward in camo, her boots steady, her head held high. Her mind replayed her father's words and her sketches of helicopters soaring through storms. She imagined the students watching her, their expressions shifting from mockery to awe. Sleep came slowly, haunted by nerves but fortified by determination. Emma knew the next day could change everything. Friday morning arrived with a crisp, clear sky. Emma donned her carefully chosen outfit, camouflage pants and jacket adorned with aviation patches, boots polished to a soft gleam. Her hair was neatly tied back, and her backpack contained sketches and notes, her personal armor. She walked to school with Lily by her side, the morning sun casting long shadows across the sidewalk. For the first time, Emma felt anticipation mingled with excitement rather than dread. She was no longer just enduring the day, she was embracing it. Arriving at school, the hallways buzzed with excitement and chaos. Posters screamed team pride, while students chattered eagerly about halftime shows and football strategies. Yet Emma moved with quiet confidence. Whispers followed her, but they no longer carried the same sting. She had internalized her father's lessons and her own meticulous preparation. Today, she would be herself fully, without compromise. Each step toward the football field was deliberate, measured, an assertion of identity that refused to be diminished. At lunchtime, she sat with Lily's sketchbook open, tracing the rotor blades of helicopters as the buzz of Spirit Week swirled around them. Emma felt a strange calm, a sense that something monumental was approaching, even though she couldn't name it yet. She reviewed her plan for the afternoon, the timing, her entrance onto the field. Her heart pounded with a mix of nerves and exhilaration. She was ready to face mockery, curiosity, and perhaps something even greater. By the time third period ended, Emma knew she had reached the edge of a transformation. The girl who had been laughed at, mocked, and underestimated was preparing to step into the spotlight on her own terms. She carried not arrogance but a quiet strength. Tomorrow's football game would not define her, she would define herself. And somewhere deep inside, Emma felt that her journey was only beginning. Friday afternoon arrived with a golden sun casting long shadows across the Lincoln High football field. Emma tightened the straps of her backpack and stepped onto the turf, the familiar crunch of cleats and grass beneath her boots grounding her. The crowd in the stands buzzed with excitement over the big game, but Emma felt a different kind of pressure. All eyes were on her, whether they realized it or not. Whispers traveled faster than the autumn wind. "Army girl is actually going to show up," someone muttered. Laughter followed. Snickers rippled through groups of students. Emma's heart thumped, not with fear but anticipation. Every day of ridicule, every sideways glance and cruel joke had led to this moment. She took a deep breath, recalling her father's voice. "Courage isn't the absence of fear, Emma. It's facing what terrifies you with calm resolve." She adjusted her camo jacket, ran a finger over the embroidered aviation patches, and imagined herself in a black hawk, hovering above challenges too heavy to imagine. This was her battlefield, and she would step into it on her terms. The football team was already on the field, tossing the ball back and forth. Players paused to watch her approach, confusion flickering across their faces. Emma ignored them, focusing instead on the center of the field. The principal's voice echoed faintly over the PA system, calling students to their seats, but Emma had her own purpose. She walked steadily, boots striking the turf in time with her resolve, sketchbook clutched like a shield. As she moved forward, cameras appeared, held by students eager to capture her in action. Laughter began to rise again. "There she goes, marching to the battlefield," someone called mockingly. Another chimed in, "Do you need a helmet too?" Emma felt the familiar sting of humiliation, but she refused to flinch. She remembered Lily's quiet encouragement and her father's lessons on poise and focus. She would not give them satisfaction. Instead, she embraced her uniqueness like armor, the patches on her jacket gleaming under the autumn sun. Some students whispered among themselves. A few, particularly underclassmen, watched with curiosity rather than ridicule. Emma noticed these small shifts and let them bolster her confidence. Perhaps, she thought, the whispers wouldn't always be cruel. Maybe they would wonder, maybe they would learn. She moved with precision, every step deliberate, every motion asserting her identity. By the time she reached the center of the field, a hush had fallen over parts of the crowd. Even the football players paused mid-practice, unsure whether to laugh or stare. Emma opened her sketchbook, briefly flipping to a diagram of a helicopter in flight. She imagined the rotor blades slicing through the wind, the cockpit steady despite turbulence. The roar of a distant engine briefly caught her attention. She looked up, squinting at the sky. The sound grew steadily louder, a mechanical hum that didn't belong to the football stadium. Heads began to tilt upward, curiosity replacing laughter. Emma's pulse quickened. Something big was approaching, something that would change everything. The students in the stands began murmuring. "What is that?" someone asked. The cheerleaders froze mid-motion, pom-poms suspended in the air. Coaches looked skyward, shielding their eyes against the sun. And then the unmistakable shape of a Black Hawk helicopter emerged, cutting through the clouds with purposeful precision. The rotor blades churned the air, whipping dust and debris across the field. Students gasped. Phones rose to capture the impossible moment. The noise of the engine overtook the chatter of the crowd, turning excitement into awe. Emma's heart leapt. Her father's voice rang in her head. "Identify your target, maintain composure, observe before acting." She recognized the markings, the call signs, even the subtle positioning of the helicopter as it approached. While most of the crowd panicked, she stood rooted in understanding and anticipation. The mockery, the snickers, the whispered jokes, all faded into insignificance. Emma's calm contrasted sharply with the chaos around her. The Black Hawk descended, slowly lowering itself toward the center of the field, rotor wash whipping the grass and tumbling debris in all directions. Some students screamed, others gawked in disbelief. Emma remained focused, watching the helicopter with a mixture of excitement and recognition. The principal shouted through the PA system, trying to restore order, but his voice was lost under the roar of the helicopter. Emma felt a strange thrill. This was bigger than she could have imagined. Yet she didn't panic. Unlike the students frozen by surprise, she understood the power of preparation and knowledge. Her entire life of fascination with aviation, every late-night study session and sketch, had led to this precise moment. The helicopter touched down with a controlled thud, settling on the turf at the center of the field. The rotor blades continued to spin, lifting dust and creating waves of movement across the stadium. Emma took a step closer, boots crunching softly against the grass. A small military team emerged from the side doors, uniformed and authoritative. One figure, tall and familiar, stepped forward. Emma's breath caught. Recognition hit her before the crowd even processed it. Her father was there, leading the team, pride etched into every line of his face. The crowd went silent, unsure how to react. Cameras clicked furiously, phones recording every second. Emma's peers, who had mocked her for years, could not believe their eyes. The girl in camo had a direct connection to real military operations. She had knowledge, training, and courage they could only imagine. Emma stood tall, sketchbook now resting at her side, face calm but radiant. The mockery of the morning had been replaced with awe. She had arrived, not just on the field but in the perception of everyone watching. A few moments later, her father waved, signaling for her to step forward. Emma moved confidently, each step deliberate. The roar of the helicopter surrounded her, but she remained centered, focused. The teasing and ridicule of the past week seemed distant, almost irrelevant. She had endured them, had transformed them into preparation. Every glance that once stung now reinforced her courage. Students whispered, "Is she his daughter?" The realization spread like wildfire. The outsider was extraordinary, and the football field had become the stage for her moment of recognition. By the time Emma reached the helicopter, she was no longer just the girl in camo. She was a symbol of quiet strength, of preparation and pride overcoming ridicule. The crowd's reaction shifted from laughter to respect, awe, and curiosity. Emma looked at her father, smiled, and knew the moment she had prepared for all her life had arrived. The football field, once a place of mockery and whispers, had become a battleground where courage and identity triumphed. And above it all, the Black Hawk stood as proof that she had arrived, fully herself, unshaken, unstoppable. The roar of the Black Hawk filled the stadium, shaking the very air and tossing dust, paper, and excitement in every direction. Students clutched the rails of the bleachers, some screaming in disbelief, others frozen in awe. Emma stood at the center of the football field, her boots planted firmly on the grass, sketchbook forgotten in her hand. Her heartbeat raced, but it was not from fear. It was exhilaration, a thrill that coursed through her veins like electricity. She had studied helicopters for years, yet nothing compared to the overwhelming reality of one descending right before her eyes. The massive machine hovered above the field, rotor blades slicing the wind, each turn a gust of power and authority. Emma instinctively recognized the call signs and insignia. Her knowledge was no longer academic, it was visceral. "Maintain composure," her father's voice echoed in her mind as though he were there beside her. Her eyes followed the landing sequence, every motion deliberate, calculated, and precise. The crowd around her erupted in nervous whispers, the sound of awe mingling with fear. Teachers gestured frantically, attempting to calm students, but the energy was electric and uncontrollable. Emma's peers, those who had mocked her just days earlier, gawked in silence. The whispers of ridicule vanished as the helicopter touched down with a controlled thud. Dust swirled around the landing zone, creating a small whirlwind that mirrored the emotional storm in the stands. The doors of the Black Hawk swung open, revealing uniformed soldiers stepping onto the turf. Emma's heart skipped a beat as a tall figure emerged from the cockpit. Recognition hit her immediately, warm and overwhelming, her father. Tears pricked Emma's eyes. After years of teasing and isolation, here he was, leading a team of professionals in a display that validated every ounce of her dedication, courage, and identity. The principal's voice faltered as he tried to speak over the hum of the rotor blades. The students were silent, eyes wide, unable to process the reality unfolding in front of them. The girl in camo, mocked, ridiculed, underestimated, was now standing at the center of an extraordinary moment of recognition. Emma's father waved to her, his expression a mixture of pride and admiration. "Emma, come here," he called, his voice steady, confident. She took a deep breath and walked forward, each step deliberate, boots crunching against the grass. Her peers stared, some in awe, some with a faint trace of disbelief that this was the same girl they had mocked just hours ago. She felt Lily's supportive hand brush against her shoulder, grounding her in the moment, reminding her she wasn't alone. The soldiers surrounding her father formed a semicircle, professional and poised, adding a sense of ceremony to the unexpected spectacle. Emma's father knelt slightly, gesturing for her to step closer. "This," he said, voice carrying over the hum of the rotors, "is what courage looks like, pride looks like. And this is for you, Emma." He gestured to the team behind him, each member nodding respectfully. The moment wasn't just personal, it was symbolic. It was a validation of years of study, preparation, and unshakable belief in herself. Emma's classmates exchanged glances, whispers rippling through the crowd. "Is that her dad?" one student murmured. "That's not possible," another added. The reality began to sink in. The girl they had mocked for wearing camo wasn't just eccentric, she was extraordinary, connected to a real-life military operation. Her knowledge of aviation, her attention to detail, her poise under pressure, it wasn't just theory, it was experience waiting to be realized. The ridicule of past weeks evaporated under the weight of awe. The helicopter's rotor blade slowed slightly, but the presence of power remained. Emma could feel it vibrating through the soles of her boots. The energy in the stadium shifted, a transformation from casual mockery to profound respect. Her father extended his hand, inviting her to step closer to the helicopter. Emma hesitated for a brief second, scanning the crowd, nodding the wide eyes and hushed voices. Then she walked forward with the same determination that had carried her through years of teasing. As she reached the Black Hawk, she noticed the meticulous care with which her father had coordinated the landing. It was a demonstration of precision, professionalism, and trust, all values he had instilled in her over years of mentorship. The soldiers behind him moved with purpose, their presence lending gravity to the moment. Emma stood tall, heart pounding, but face calm. She realized that everything she had endured, the whispers, the teasing, the loneliness, had prepared her for this extraordinary intersection of her personal passion and public recognition. The principal finally found his voice. "Emma Winters," he said, addressing the crowd with visible awe, "has earned special recognition for her dedication, knowledge, and courage. She will participate in a mentorship program with the Army Aviation Unit. This is a moment of pride for our school." The students were speechless. Cameras flashed furiously as Emma's classmates struggled to reconcile the girl they had mocked with the one commanding admiration from a helicopter landing team. Emma's father knelt beside her once more, speaking quietly but firmly. "Emma, your knowledge, your discipline, and your courage have brought you here. I wanted you to see firsthand that being yourself is never wrong. Pride comes from within, and today everyone sees it." Her eyes shimmered with tears. Pride, joy, and validation flooded her simultaneously. For years she had endured ridicule silently, but now, standing on the field with the Black Hawk behind her and her father by her side, she felt seen, understood, and celebrated. The crowd erupted in applause, slowly at first, then building into a wave of admiration. Some students whispered apologies, unsure how to approach her. Others simply stared, captivated. Emma took a deep breath, feeling the hum of the helicopter, the weight of her sketches, and the presence of her father coalesce into a single, defining moment. She had arrived fully, her courage unshaken, her passion validated, her identity celebrated. As the Black Hawk's rotors slowed to a gentle thrum, Emma stepped forward, shaking hands with her father and the team. She felt a surge of confidence unlike anything before. Today, the girl in camo had transcended mockery, transforming the field, the students, and herself. The helicopter was more than a machine. It was a symbol of her resilience, her knowledge, and the unwavering courage that had carried her through years of whispers and ridicule. For Emma, this wasn't the end. It was a beginning. The helicopter landing had shifted her world, proving that standing firm in one's identity could command respect, even awe. The crowd cheered again, louder this time, recognizing the transformation. A girl once mocked had emerged as a beacon of strength, intellect, and pride. And standing amid rotor wash, dust swirling around her boots, Emma knew that everything she had endured, the teasing, the isolation, the doubt, had led her to this moment of triumph. The dust from the Black Hawk's landing swirled around Emma's boots, catching the sunlight in fleeting golden streaks. She took a step closer to her father, who stood tall, helmet under one arm, face lined with pride. Around them, the crowd of students and teachers watched in stunned silence, phones raised but voices muted. For weeks, she had endured laughter, whispers, and judgment. Now, in one breathtaking moment, all of it seemed insignificant. The girl who had been mocked for wearing camouflage had become the center of awe, her uniqueness validated in a way that even she could hardly believe. Her father extended a hand, and Emma grasped it firmly, feeling the reassuring strength of his grip. "Emma," he began, voice calm but filled with warmth, You've worked hard, studied diligently, and shown courage in ways most people don't understand. Your knowledge, your persistence, and your focus have earned you something extraordinary." The weight of his words sank in slowly. This wasn't just a visit or a demonstration. It was recognition, official and real. She felt her pulse quicken, a mixture of pride and disbelief surging through her chest. The soldiers behind him formed a respectful semicircle, eyes fixed on Emma. She realized that she was not only being honored but symbolically welcomed into a world she had long admired from afar. Each uniformed face conveyed respect, a silent acknowledgement of her dedication. Emma's father continued, "You've been selected for a mentorship program with the Army Aviation Unit. This will give you hands-on experience, simulations, and guidance from real pilots. It's an opportunity few your age could even imagine." A hush fell over the crowd, broken only by gasps and murmurs of astonishment. Emma's classmates stared in disbelief. Those who had mocked her, the ones who had whispered cruel jokes and filmed videos for laughs, now struggled to reconcile reality with their assumptions. Some lowered their heads in shame, realizing how wrong they had been. Others simply gawked, mouths open, as admiration slowly replaced disbelief. A few underclassmen who had always watched quietly from the sidelines whispered excitedly, all lighting their faces. Emma's quiet confidence had shifted their perception. She was no longer just the weird girl in camo. She was someone extraordinary. Lily, standing just behind Emma, squeezed her friend's hand. "You did it," she whispered, eyes shining. Emma nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. She glanced at her father, who smiled knowingly. "I wanted you to see this for yourself," he said. "It's not about showing off or proving anyone wrong. It's about being yourself and letting your courage and knowledge speak for you." Emma's chest swelled. For years, she had wondered if anyone could ever truly understand her passions. Today, she realized they could, in a way she had never imagined. The principal, still pale from the unexpected spectacle, stepped forward, microphone in hand. "Emma Winters," he said, his voice trembling slightly with awe, "has not only endured ridicule but has excelled beyond anyone's expectations. We are proud to recognize her courage, knowledge, and dedication. Emma's journey reminds us that individuality, resilience, and passion deserve respect. Today, she stands as an example for all students." Applause erupted, hesitant at first, then building into a wave that filled the stadium. Emma's classmates began clapping, some with hesitation, others with genuine admiration. The Black Hawk stood as a silent testament behind them, its rotor blades slowly settling into stillness. Emma's father gestured toward it. "This helicopter is not just a machine," he said. "It's a symbol of precision, skill, and responsibility. And just as every rotor blade has a purpose, so too does every step you've taken lead to this moment. Your dedication has earned you access to this world, Emma. You've earned respect and you've earned opportunity." Emma listened intently, absorbing every word. Her father's presence, combined with the reality of the helicopter and the program, crystallized her sense of self-worth. Some students approached timidly, eyes downcast. I'm sorry," one whispered, the same boy who had mocked her for months. Another followed suit, extending a hand in apology. Emma looked at them and smiled gently, understanding the sincerity in their gestures. "Thank you," she said, voice calm and unwavering. "I hope you understand that being yourself is always more important than trying to fit in." The words, simple but firm, seemed to resonate, leaving a lasting impression on those who had once ridiculed her. News of the helicopter and mentorship program spread quickly through the school. Teachers whispered among themselves, impressed by the rare display of courage, composure, and recognition. Students lingered near Emma, curious and respectful, eager to learn about her experiences and knowledge. She found herself answering questions, describing rotor mechanics, and explaining aspects of flight with calm authority. The girl who had been laughed at now held attention effortlessly. Her passion had become contagious, inspiring others to reconsider their own assumptions about individuality and courage. Emma's father knelt slightly, bringing himself to eye level with her. "This is just the beginning," he said softly. "You have what it takes to achieve more than you've imagined. And remember, recognition isn't about applause or admiration. It's about understanding your worth, your knowledge, and your courage. That's something no one can take away from you. Emma felt a surge of gratitude and pride. Every hour spent studying, every moment endured in silence, every page of sketches and notes, it had all led here. She was seen, she was valued. As the helicopter's engine cooled, students began to approach the perimeter of the field, some cautiously, some with excitement. Emma's peers who had once mocked her now asked questions with genuine curiosity, eager to learn about the experience that had transformed her reputation overnight. She spoke with patience and humility, explaining technical details, sharing anecdotes, and describing her passion for aviation. Her poise and confidence created a ripple effect, inspiring even those who had doubted her to reconsider their own approach to judgment and acceptance. Finally, the crowd began to disperse, leaving Emma and her father alone on the field. She looked at him, a mixture of awe and gratitude in her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. "I never imagined this." He smiled, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You earned it," he said simply. "By being yourself, by working hard, and by standing tall, you've proven something far more important than popularity or approval. You've proven courage, resilience, and integrity." Emma nodded, understanding that this revelation was more than recognition. It was a turning point, a beginning for the next chapter of her life. For the first time in years, she felt completely free from the weight of ridicule. The girl who had been mocked for wearing camo had transformed into someone admired, respected, and celebrated. The Black Hawk, standing behind her as both symbol and reality, represented every moment of dedication, courage, and perseverance. Emma knew that while Spirit Week had begun as a test of endurance, it had culminated in a revelation far greater than she could have imagined. The world could see her for who she truly was. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the Lincoln High football field as Emma stood beside her father, the Black Hawk looming behind them like a monument to courage. For weeks, she had endured whispers, laughter, and ridicule. Today, those same voices now carried awe and curiosity. Her peers who had mocked her moments earlier were cautiously approaching, hesitant but undeniably interested. The transformation was palpable. Emma realized that respect, once denied to her, was now flowing freely, not demanded, but earned through composure, knowledge, and quiet strength. Lily squeezed her hand. "I can't believe this," she whispered. Emma smiled, acknowledging her friend's unwavering support. The cheers and applause had faded, leaving a quieter hum of conversation as students approached with questions rather than jokes. "How did you know so much about the helicopter?" one underclassman asked timidly. Emma bent slightly, pointing to the rotor blades, and began explaining their function with calm authority. She traced the airflow over the blades in the air, demonstrating lift and stability, her voice confident, patient, and authoritative. Teachers had begun circling as well, curiosity replacing caution. Mrs. Daniels, her biology teacher, stepped forward, clearly impressed. "Emma, I didn't realize your depth of knowledge. You've turned what seemed like a hobby into expertise most adults would envy." Emma's heart warmed at the compliment, but she remained grounded. "I've loved learning about aviation for years," she explained. "It started as sketches and reading manuals, but now I'm ready to take it further with the mentorship program my father coordinated. There's so much more to understand." Her explanation was precise, technical, yet accessible, a bridge between fascination and education. Classmates who had once sneered at her for wearing camo now nodded, some in silent admiration, others with reluctant acceptance. A boy who had thrown a crumpled note in her direction just a week ago approached hesitantly. I didn't understand before," he admitted. "I'm sorry." Emma's response was simple, graceful, and forgiving. "Thank you. It's never too late to learn or to try being yourself." His eyes widened slightly, registering the quiet strength behind her words. In that moment, mockery had been transformed into respect. The Black Hawk, now idling behind her, seemed to amplify the significance of her presence. Emma's father watched from nearby, arms crossed, a proud smile on his face. "This is exactly why I wanted you to experience this," he said quietly. It's one thing to understand aviation in theory, it's another to see it recognized in front of the world. And it's another entirely to see people begin to understand you for who you truly are. Emma nodded, absorbing the depth of his words. Recognition wasn't just about applause, it was about understanding. Emma spent the next several minutes walking students and teachers through the helicopter's components, explaining rotor dynamics, flight stability, and operational safety. She pointed to small insignias, describing their significance. Every explanation was met with fascination. Phones recorded her words, capturing not a girl mocked for wearing camouflage, but a young woman commanding respect through knowledge and passion. For many students, this was their first real encounter with a subject so technical and precise, explained with clarity and confidence. Emma had become a teacher, an inspiration and a symbol, all in one. Even the cheerleaders who had mocked her earlier in the week approached with curiosity. "Can you show us how it works?" one asked. Emma smiled, nodding politely. She led them to the rotor blades, explaining the aerodynamics in simple terms, while emphasizing the discipline required to operate such a machine safely. The cheerleaders listened intently, nodding as comprehension replaced prior judgment. Emma realized that interest could only grow once curiosity replaced ridicule. She felt a sense of accomplishment deeper than any social approval she had previously sought. Some students began taking notes, others sketched their own diagrams inspired by her. Emma noticed a group of younger students lingering near the bleachers, quietly absorbing everything she said. They weren't just impressed, they were inspired. They saw someone who had endured mockery, who had maintained composure, who had embraced their passion despite ridicule. Emma's influence began to ripple outward, extending beyond immediate peers to younger students who might one day follow in her footsteps. This was far more significant than popularity. It was the cultivation of respect and inspiration. Even the social media frenzy had begun. Phones captured clips of Emma explaining lift, rotor efficiency, and cockpit controls. Hashtags began to circulate: Girl in Camo, #Black Hawk Hero, Lincoln High Pride. The story spread not because of a prank or spectacle, but because of her poise, knowledge, and courage. Emma's passion had become contagious. Teachers discussed inviting her to speak at assemblies. Students whispered about starting aviation clubs, and the school community collectively reevaluated their understanding of what it meant to stand out. Emma's uniqueness, once a target of ridicule, had transformed into a beacon of learning and empowerment. As the rotor blades slowly powered down, Emma took a moment to breathe in the field around her. The whispers of mockery that had followed her for years had vanished. What remained was respect, curiosity, and admiration. She glanced at Lily, who nodded encouragingly. Emma knew this moment would stay with her forever, not for the applause, but for the affirmation of her identity. She had stood firm, she had shared her knowledge, and she had inspired others to see beyond appearances. Her father approached, placing a hand on her shoulder. "This is the respect you've earned," he said softly. "Not through compliance, not through fitting in, but by being yourself, showing discipline, and standing strong. Remember this feeling, Emma. This is the power of knowledge, courage, and integrity." Emma nodded, gratitude and pride swelling within her. She had learned something deeper than recognition. She had witnessed the transformation of perception, the ripple effect of courage, and the true value of self-respect. By the end of the day, students continued to approach, each interaction reinforcing the same lesson: authenticity commands respect. Emma answered every question with patience, shared every detail with enthusiasm, and maintained her quiet composure throughout. Teachers nodded, impressed by her ability to engage the student body, turning curiosity into understanding. The girl who had once been mocked for wearing camo had earned a legacy of admiration, curiosity, and respect that would ripple through the school for years to come. As the crowd slowly dispersed, Emma stood for a moment longer, looking at the Black Hawk resting on the field. It was more than a helicopter. It was a symbol of endurance, preparation, and the power of standing firm in one's identity. Emma realized that respect, once elusive, had been earned not through spectacle or argument, but through knowledge, courage, and authenticity. Today, she had become a teacher, a mentor, and a model of perseverance. And in that quiet understanding, she felt an unshakable pride that no mockery could ever diminish. The following week, Lincoln High was abuzz with renewed energy. Emma's presence, and the story of the Black Hawk landing, had transformed the school atmosphere. Students who had once whispered behind her back now approached her with curiosity and respect. Teachers discussed her as a role model. Administrators brainstormed ways to integrate her passion into the curriculum, and even the football team, who had once regarded her with amusement, watched her with newfound admiration. Emma herself moved with quiet confidence, her camo jacket now a badge of honor rather than ridicule. The mentorship program her father had arranged officially began the next day. Emma arrived at the local Army aviation facility early, notebook and sketches in hand. She was introduced to a team of seasoned pilots who would guide her through simulations, technical training, and hands-on exercises. The experience was exhilarating. Every lever, every rotor diagram, every tactical decision mirrored the lessons she had spent years studying. Yet what made the program extraordinary wasn't just the technical skill, it was the validation. Here, her passion was not just understood, it was celebrated. Emma's first simulation placed her in a virtual cockpit, navigating a Black Hawk through turbulent winds and simulated urban terrain. Her heart raced, not from fear, but from excitement. Each maneuver required precision and composure, and every decision carried weight. Her instructors nodded approvingly as she executed each step with accuracy and calm. "You've got a natural talent," one pilot remarked. "Most adults would struggle to maintain this level of focus under pressure." Emma smiled, absorbing the praise while remaining grounded. This was her domain, a place where preparation, knowledge, and resilience converged. Meanwhile, back at Lincoln High, Emma's story spread like wildfire. Clips of her explaining rotor mechanics and standing confidently beside the Black Hawk circulated on social media. Hashtags trended, "Girl in Camo," #Black Hawk Landing, Lincoln High Hero. Students from other schools shared the footage, inspired by her poise and courage. Teachers from neighboring districts contacted the school, hoping to learn more about the young woman whose resilience had turned ridicule into national admiration. Emma's influence had expanded beyond the football field, reaching countless young people hungry for inspiration. At school, Emma noticed subtle but meaningful changes. Younger students who had always stayed silent now approached her, asking questions about helicopters, aviation, and the Army mentorship program. Clubs formed around STEM, aviation, and leadership, all inspired by her example. Emma found herself guiding these conversations, answering questions patiently, and encouraging others to explore their passions unapologetically. The same school where she had endured mockery had become a platform for her to inspire curiosity, ambition, and courage in others. Even her former tormentors were transformed. Some approached quietly, offering apologies and genuine curiosity. "I didn't realize how much effort and knowledge went into this," one student admitted. "I was wrong to make fun of you." Emma accepted the words with grace, emphasizing that courage wasn't about being perfect, it was about persistence and authenticity. The shift in perception was profound. She realized that influence and respect were earned not through confrontation, but through consistent demonstration of skill, knowledge, and composure. Emma's mentorship days became a routine, each filled with technical training, flight simulations, and strategic exercises. She learned to interpret instrument readings, calculate load and balance, and execute complex maneuvers. The experience challenged her in ways textbooks never could. She thrived under the guidance of experienced pilots, her calm temperament and attention to detail setting her apart. Each lesson reinforced the truth she had discovered on the football field. Dedication, resilience, and knowledge were far more powerful than ridicule or doubt. At home, her father watched her progress with pride. "You're inspiring more than just students now," he remarked one evening. "Your story is spreading, showing people that perseverance and courage can turn mockery into respect and passion into purpose. Emma smiled, realizing he was right. She had begun the week as the girl mocked for wearing camo and ended it as someone whose example encouraged others to embrace their unique talents and interests. Her journey had transcended personal triumph. It was becoming a source of collective inspiration. By midweek, Emma was invited to speak during an assembly at Lincoln High. The auditorium was packed, students leaning forward in anticipation, teachers beaming with pride, and administrators watching intently. She spoke about resilience, the importance of embracing curiosity, and the power of staying true to oneself despite ridicule. She shared stories from her years of studying aviation, describing how her father's mentorship and her personal dedication had prepared her for this extraordinary moment. The audience listened intently, captivated by the combination of humility, knowledge, and courage in her voice. Emma concluded her speech with a simple message. You don't have to fit in to be extraordinary. You just have to be yourself, work hard, and embrace your passions. Ridicule doesn't define you, your perseverance does. The auditorium erupted into applause. Students who had once mocked her were now standing, some with tears, some with awe, all with newfound respect. Emma felt a surge of accomplishment and fulfillment. The validation she had long sought had arrived, but it was different now, earned, genuine, and transformative. Even beyond Lincoln High, Emma's story began to inspire. Local news outlets requested interviews. Social media posts garnered thousands of shares. Young people across the country watched the footage of a girl in camo standing fearlessly on a football field, explaining the mechanics of a Black Hawk helicopter while inspiring curiosity and admiration. Emma realized her journey had grown beyond personal vindication. It had become a lesson in courage, authenticity, and the transformative power of knowledge. By the end of the week, Emma returned to the Black Hawk for another training session. Standing beside the helicopter, she reflected on her journey, from a girl mocked for wearing camouflage to a young woman commanding respect, admiration, and curiosity. The rotor blades hummed in the sunlight, a reminder of her perseverance, preparation, and courage. She knew that this was only the beginning. Her influence would continue to grow, guiding younger students, inspiring peers, and transforming perceptions everywhere she went. For Emma, the lesson was clear. Courage isn't measured by applause or avoidance of ridicule. It is measured by the ability to stand firm in the face of doubt, embrace one's passions, and use knowledge and skill to inspire others. And as the Black Hawk's engine roared, she understood that she had not only transformed herself but had sparked a movement of curiosity, respect, and courage in the world around her. The week had transformed Lincoln High. Emma stood once more at the center of the football field, the Black Hawk resting behind her, gleaming in the afternoon sun. The roar of the rotor blades had faded into memory, replaced by applause, curiosity, and admiration. Today was different, not a demonstration, not a mentorship session, but a celebration. Students, teachers, and administrators had gathered to honor Emma's courage, dedication, and the extraordinary journey that had begun with ridicule and ended with awe. Emma looked around at the crowd. Faces that had once sneered were now filled with respect. Underclassmen gazed up at her with wide eyes, inspired by her transformation. Even the seniors who had mocked her initially approached cautiously, some extending hands in apology, others simply offering nods of recognition. She smiled softly, understanding that this was more than recognition. It was redemption, not only for herself, but for the idea that anyone could rise above judgment through courage and perseverance. Her father stepped beside her, proud and steady. "Emma," he said, voice carrying over the field, "today is a recognition of your extraordinary spirit. You have faced ridicule, embraced your passions, and inspired those around you. That is courage, that is leadership, that is integrity." The applause swelled. Cameras flashed, phones recorded, and Emma felt the weight of every glance, every whispered admiration, solidifying the impact she had made. The principal approached, holding a framed certificate and a small plaque. For exceptional dedication, courage, and inspiring leadership, Lincoln High School proudly presents this recognition to Emma Winters, he announced. Emma accepted the awards with quiet grace, her heart pounding but her composure unwavering. She glanced at her father, who nodded approvingly. Every hardship, every snicker, every moment of doubt had led to this culmination of achievement, pride, and acknowledgement. Emma's eyes wandered to the Black Hawk. It had become more than a helicopter. It was a symbol of the journey she had endured. Rotor blades spinning in memory, dust swirling around her boots, the machine represented resilience, preparation, and the courage to stand tall. She realized that the helicopter was also a metaphor for influence. Just as it could lift heavy burdens and navigate turbulent seas, her story could elevate the spirits of others, teaching lessons of perseverance and authenticity. The crowd began to cheer again, louder and more sustained this time, filled with genuine admiration. Students and teachers alike had been transformed by witnessing Emma's journey. The girl once mocked for wearing camo had become a symbol of what it meant to stand firm, embrace one's passions, and inspire through quiet strength. Emma's voice, calm yet confident, finally addressed the audience. "Thank you," she said, "for letting me share who I am, for letting me stand here unapologetically. I hope my story shows that courage is not about fitting in. It's about standing tall and being true to yourself, no matter what others think." The students erupted in applause, some whistling, others cheering. The energy was electric. Emma's father placed a hand on her shoulder, proud yet humbled by the impact his daughter had made. "You've taught everyone here a lesson far beyond academics," he said quietly. "You've taught them about integrity, perseverance, and leadership." Emma nodded, a warmth spreading through her chest. She had not only changed her own story, she had begun to change the culture of her school. News crews had arrived, capturing footage of the Black Hawk and Emma's speech. Social media buzzed with excitement. Videos of her calmly explaining the helicopter, sharing her journey, and addressing her peers went viral. Young people across the country saw a girl who had been mocked but refused to be diminished. They saw someone who turned ridicule into motivation, who transformed curiosity into inspiration, and who embodied courage in its most authentic form. Emma's story became a touchstone for students everywhere struggling to find their voice. Later that afternoon, Emma guided a small group of underclassmen toward the helicopter, demonstrating key features and explaining basic flight principles. She spoke with clarity, patience, and enthusiasm. Every question was met with encouragement, every curiosity nurtured. She realized that this was part of her legacy, not fame, not viral videos, but the ability to inspire others to pursue their passions unapologetically. The young students listened, eyes wide with wonder, absorbing not only knowledge but a sense of possibility. Emma's former critics lingered nearby, observing in silence. They had once derided her for her uniqueness, her passion, and her unwavering individuality. Now they watched with fascination and respect, some quietly reflecting on their own choices and assumptions. Emma noticed them but did not seek confrontation. Her example spoke louder than words. Courage, she had learned, was infectious, and inspiration was far more powerful than ridicule. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the field, Emma stood beside the Black Hawk, notebook in hand, reflecting on the incredible transformation. The journey from mockery to recognition had not been easy. Every snicker, every whispered comment, every moment of doubt had been a test of her resilience. Yet now, standing in triumph, Emma felt an overwhelming sense of fulfillment. She had earned respect, inspired others, and discovered the true power of being unapologetically oneself. Her father approached once more. "Emma," he said softly, "your story will be remembered here and beyond. You've inspired your peers, younger students, and even adults. This is just the beginning. Continue learning, continue leading, and never forget that the courage to be yourself is the most powerful force there is." Emma nodded, a deep sense of purpose settling within her. She had realized that her journey was not only personal, it was universal. Every student who had ever been mocked or doubted could now see that authenticity, courage, and preparation could transform perception and inspire change. Finally, the Black Hawk's rotor blade spun one last time, lifting gently into the sky. Emma watched it ascend, feeling a profound connection to the machine she had studied, admired, and now experienced in real life. It was a symbol of triumph, possibility, and the heights that courage could reach. The crowd cheered, students clapped, and Emma felt a surge of joy and accomplishment unlike anything before. The girl who had once been mocked had become a beacon of inspiration, a living example of perseverance, skill, and integrity. As the helicopter disappeared into the horizon, Emma turned to her classmates, friends, and teachers. "Remember," she said, voice clear and steady, "your journey is yours alone. Don't let anyone else define it. Stand tall, pursue your passions, and inspire others along the way." The applause that followed was deafening, filled with admiration, respect, and genuine celebration. Emma smiled, knowing that the story of the girl in camo had come full circle, from mockery to mastery, from ridicule to inspiration, from isolation to leadership. In that moment, Lincoln High understood that courage could be quiet, strength could be subtle, and true recognition came not from fitting in, but from rising above, embracing authenticity and sharing one's passion with the world. Emma Winters, once mocked, now stood as a symbol of resilience, determination, and the extraordinary power of simply being yourself. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, her legacy in flight had only just begun.